The written word is perhaps the greatest invention in human history. It is the vessel that carries knowledge across the silent, unbridgeable gulf of time. From a simple clay tablet recording a merchant's inventory to the grand philosophical treatises of the ages, a book is a pact between the past and the present, an act of faith that a mind in a distant future will be able to connect with a mind from a long-vanished world. We are surrounded by the successful fulfillment of this pact. Our libraries are a testament to our ability to decode the thoughts of our ancestors, to hear their voices, and to build our present upon the foundations of their wisdom. The entire edifice of human history rests on this single fundamental principle. What can be written can, eventually, be read. But what if a book existed that broke this sacred pact? What if there was a survivor from the past that did not communicate, but only concealed? An object whose every page was filled with elegant, deliberate, and intricate writing, but whose meaning was so completely locked away that it has actively resisted every attempt at understanding for over 600 years. This is not a book with a few missing pages or a partially damaged text. It is a complete, 240-page enigma, a text that seems to be screaming a message that we are profoundly, fundamentally unable to hear. It is a work of art that denies a key part of its own humanity, the desire to be understood. Imagine you are in the Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University, a modern cathedral of knowledge. In a quiet, climate-controlled vault, a librarian presents you with a small, unassuming volume. It is not large or ostentatious. It is bound in a simple, limp vellum cover, its pages aged to the color of old ivory. As you open it, you are immediately struck by the script. It is unlike anything you have ever seen. It flows across the page with a graceful, confident hand, the characters looping and connecting as if part of a real, functional language. But the characters themselves are alien, a beautiful and bewildering alphabet that belongs to no known linguistic family. Your eyes are then drawn to the illustrations that fill the pages, rendered in faded but still vibrant inks of green, blue, brown, and red. On one page, you see a drawing of a plant, but its leaves are a fantastical shape. Its root system is a bizarre, interlocking puzzle, and its flower is a strange, almost celestial design. You turn the page and see another, and another, a veritable garden of impossible, dream-like botany. You turn further and find strange astronomical charts, diagrams of the zodiac, and constellations that are not our own. You find pages filled with small naked figures, bathing in strange, interconnected green pools, as if part of some arcane ritual. You are holding in your hands a complete world, with its own science, its own nature, and its own language. And yet, you are a complete and total alien within it. This is the profound and unsettling experience of the Voynich Manuscript. It is a mystery that has humbled the greatest minds in modern history. The same kind of brilliant cryptographers who broke the German Enigma code during the Second World War and the Japanese purple cipher have thrown themselves at this book and have been utterly defeated by it. Modern linguists, classicists, and computer scientists using sophisticated AI and statistical analysis have all tried and failed. For over a century, since its rediscovery in a Jesuit college near Rome in 1912, it has been a source of obsessive fascination and maddening frustration. Tonight, we begin our deep dive into this singular object. The title of this journey is The Voynich Manuscript Finally Explained. But the explanation we seek is not a simple translation. The final explanation lies in the journey itself. We will explore its strange, cursed history, moving through the hands of alchemists, emperors, and spies. We will catalogue its bizarre and otherworldly contents. We will examine the great competing theorises, it an unbreakable cipher, a lost language, or the most brilliant and successful hoax in history. And we will look at the modern, technological attempts to finally crack its code. By the end, you may not know what the book says, but you will understand the full, profound depth of its silence. and why it remains, to this day, the most mysterious book in the world. The Artifact, a survivor from a lost world. Before we can attempt to understand the mind that created this book, we must first understand the object itself. It is a physical survivor, a small, quiet vessel that has carried its profound secret across 6 centuries of human history. To see it behind its climate-controlled glass is to feel the immense weight of its silence. It is not a grand, imposing volume like the great Bibles or royal chronicles of its era. It is something much more intimate and personal, measuring just 9 by 6 inches, small enough to be held comfortably in 2 hands. Its very physicality is the first chapter in its mystery, a puzzle of parchment, ink, and binding that both grounds it in our world and makes its contents seem all the more alien. The pages themselves are made of a fine, carefully prepared calfskin vellum. They are smooth but resilient, and modern radiocarbon dating has analyzed these pages with incredible precision, placing their creation firmly between the years 1404 and 1438. This single scientific fact is our only anchor in the entire enigma. It tells us that this is not a modern forgery, but a genuine artifact of the early European Renaissance, a contemporary of Donatello and Jan van Eyck. The book is composed of about 240 of these pages, though an old numbering system on the folios reveals that some pages are missing, having disappeared long ago, before the book was even bound in its current, simply vellum cover. What secrets did those lost pages contain? We can only wonder. Adding to the strangeness are several larger, fold-out sheets that open up to reveal more expansive and complex diagrams, a feature unusual in a manuscript of this size and period. The tools used to create the contents of these pages are, paradoxically, entirely normal for the time. The elegant, flowing script was written with a quill pen using iron gall ink, the standard, workhorse ink of the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, made from a mixture of iron salts and tannic acids derived from oak galls. The vibrant colors used in the hundreds of strange illustrations are also conventional. The blues are made from ground azurite minerals, the reds and browns from hematite or iron oxides, and the greens from basic copper compounds. There is nothing exotic about the materials. This is perhaps the most unsettling fact of all. The vessel is ordinary. Its physical components are entirely of our world, but the message it carries seems to be from somewhere else entirely. And the message was written with an unnerving confidence. When paleographers experts in historic handwriting study the script, they see a text that flows smoothly and quickly from left to right across the page. There are no obvious pauses, no corrections, no signs of hesitation. Whoever wrote this was not laboriously encrypting a known language letter by letter. They were writing fluently, as if transcribing a thought or a spoken word, in a language they knew intimately. The text is structured like a real language, with distinct paragraphs and words of varying lengths, separated by narrow spaces. The alphabet, or Voynich, consists of 20 to 30 unique characters, some simple, some fantastically complex, including the strange, gallows-like figures that appear nowhere else in the entire history of human writing. And so, the physical artifact itself presents us with our first deep paradox. It is made of the common materials of its time and place, and written with a confident, practiced hand. Yet, the language it contains and the world it depicts are utterly alien. The book feels real, it feels authentic, but the story it tells belongs to no history we have ever known. It is a survivor from a world that has otherwise completely vanished. The Garden of Nightmares. Its impossible botany. In the age before modern science, the herbal was one of the most important books a person could own. It was a vital encyclopedia of the natural world, a catalogue of plants and their properties, a practical guide to healing, to poisons, to survival itself. The largest section of the Voynich Manuscript, comprising over 100 pages, appears at first glance to be just such a book. The layout is familiar to any student of medieval texts. A full-page illustration of a single plant, accompanied by paragraphs of text, presumably describing its name, its virtues, and its uses. But as you turn its vellum pages, a deep and unsettling feeling begins to creep in. This is not a garden you have ever seen before. This is not a guide to our world. This is a garden of nightmares. The vast majority of the plants depicted are completely unidentifiable. They do not match any known species on Earth. Not now, and not in the fossil record. They are fantastical, chimeric creations, seemingly assembled from the parts of different plants in a way that defies all laws of nature. Imagine turning a page and seeing a flower with the delicate petals of a water lily. But they are a deep, unnatural blue, and they grow from the thorny stem of a thistle, which in turn emerges from a root system that looks like a tangle of writhing, intertwined serpents. On the next page, you might see a plant with leaves you recognize from a common fern, but they sprout directly from a root that looks like a dragon, or a strange, segmented sea creature. This is the unsettling genius of the Voynich botany. The plants are not purely alien. If they were, we could dismiss them as simple fantasy. Instead, they are filled with familiar components, rearranged into impossible configurations. It feels like looking at a distorted reflection of our own world, a reality that has been broken apart and reassembled by a mind that follows a different kind of logic. The artist shows a clear and confident understanding of how real plants are drawn. Their lines are sure, and their details are precise. Yet the subjects themselves are a complete fabrication. There is no sense of scale. A plant that resembles a small, humble weed might be given a full page and rendered with the same importance as a great, tree-like flower that seems to connect the earth and the heavens. And next to each impossible plant, the elegant, flowing script offers its silent explanation. The paragraphs wrap around the drawings, perfectly integrated, as if in deep and meaningful conversation with the image. Is this a name? A list of medicinal properties? A warning against a poison that does not exist? An alchemical recipe whose ingredients are dreams? The text promises knowledge. It promises to explain the purpose of these strange creations. But it delivers only a beautiful, ornate, and utterly frustrating silence. And so, the herbal section, which should be the most straightforward part of the book, becomes its deepest and most disturbing puzzle. It is a catalogue of a world that does not exist. It forces us to ask a fundamental question. Was the author a brilliant naturalist from a lost world, documenting its flora? Was he an alchemist, drawing symbols disguised as plants? Or was he a brilliant artist and deceiver, a man who created an entire ecosystem from the depths of his own unparalleled imagination? This garden of impossible plants is the first great locked room of the Voynich Manuscript. The heavens and the baths. A glimpse into an alien world. If the botanical section of the manuscript is a journey through an impossible version of nature, the chapters that follow are a descent into an even stranger vision of science, the cosmos, and the human body. As we turn the vellum pages, we leave the garden of nightmares behind and enter a world of alien stars, strange communal rituals, and a science that follows no rules we can possibly comprehend. It is here that the mystery deepens from simply an unknown language to an entirely unknown worldview. The journey begins with what is commonly called the astronomical and astrological section. Here, the pages are filled with intricate circular diagrams and mandalas, their geometric precision immediately reminiscent of celestial charts and zodiacs from our own history. There are radiating suns with wavy, almost human-like faces, and serene moons with placid expressions. There are complex arrangements of stars, grouped into strange and unfamiliar constellations, often with dozens of stars meticulously drawn and connected by faint lines. But the comfort of familiarity ends there. The constellations do not match any known zodiac, whether Western, Chinese, or Vedic. The symbols used to denote the heavenly bodies are unique to the manuscript. It is a map of a sky that has never hung above our world, a cosmology for a different solar system. From this alien sky, The manuscript plunges into its most bizarre and unsettling chapter, the balneological, or bathing, section. These pages are filled with dozens upon dozens of small, naked female figures. They are drawn with a strange, naive simplicity, nearly all of them with prominent, rounded abdomens. They are shown standing, wading, and floating in a series of incredibly complex, interconnected pools and vessels. The liquid they occupy is almost always depicted as a strange green or a deep blue fluid. But it is the plumbing that is most surreal. This is not a depiction of a Roman bathhouse. The tubes, pipes, and vessels are not made of stone or metal, but appear to be organic, almost anatomical. They look like diagrams of veins, of organs, of strange, biological machinery. The women are sometimes shown inside these structures, as if they are not bathing, but are instead components in some grand, biological process, whose purpose is utterly beyond our grasp. What are we to make of these dreamlike scenes? Are we looking at a text on midwifery or women's health, with the tubes and fluids representing some lost theory of the reproductive system? Is it a complex alchemical allegory, where the bathing figures represent spirits or humors being purified, distilled, and transformed by a great apparatus? Or is it a depiction of a lost religious or social ritual, a form of communal baptism or purification whose meaning is now completely forgotten? The imagery is too specific to be random, yet too strange to be literal. After the surreal journey through these green baths, the book returns to a semblance of order in its final sections. Here we see what appear to be the tools of a pharmacist, rows upon rows of decorated apothecary jars, seemingly labeled with the unreadable script. We see pages filled with drawings of plant parts, roots, leaves, flowers next to long, organized paragraphs, looking for all the world like recipes. This section teases us with the promise of practical knowledge, of remedies and potions derived from the impossible garden we saw earlier. And so, these chapters add new, bewildering layers to the enigma. We are presented with a cosmology of a different universe, a biology of a different humanity, and a science of a different nature. The book is not just a collection of strange drawings. It appears to be a complete, internally consistent, and hermetically sealed, alternate reality. The diagrams are precise, the layouts are deliberate, but the world they depict is one we can never hope to visit. It is a glimpse into a worldview so alien that it leaves us stranded on the shores of our own understanding, staring across an impassable sea. The silent language, a code that resists all masters. Beneath the impossible plants and the alien skies lies the very heart of the enigma, the text itself. It is the promise of an explanation, the key that should, in theory, unlock every other mystery in the book. But this key is forged from a metal that no one on Earth can identify. For over a century, the world's greatest minds have tried to turn this key, and the lock has not yielded. This silent language is the ultimate fortress, a cipher so profound or a language so lost that it has humbled every single person who has attempted to conquer it. At first glance, it looks like real writing. The script, now known as Voynich's, flows across the page from left to right with a confident, practiced hand. It is not the hesitant scrawl of someone inventing as they go. The text is neatly organized into paragraphs, and the words, which range from 2 to about 10 characters in length, are separated by narrow spaces. The alphabet consists of 25 to 30 unique glyphs, depending on how one counts variations. Some are simple and reminiscent of Latin or Greek letters, while others are fantastical, especially the strange recurring gallows characters, which look like a hangman's scaffold and tend to appear at the beginning of words, like ornate capital letters from a nightmare alphabet. When linguists and cryptographers apply statistical analysis to the text, the mystery only deepens. The script has all the hallmarks of a real, organized language. It follows Zipf's law, a statistical rule which states that, in any natural language, the most frequent word will appear about twice as often as the second most frequent word, and so on. The The Voynich script adheres to this law, suggesting it is not just random gibberish. It also displays linguistic structure. Some characters appear more often than others, and they follow clear rules of placement. Some prefer the beginning of a word, some the middle, and some the end. It has the skeleton of a language. The bones are all in the right place. But there is no soul, no meaning that we can find within it. The paradox lies in its strangeness. The text has features that are unlike any known human language. Certain words, and even sequences of words, are repeated 2 or 3 times in a row with a frequency that is statistically bizarre. This extreme repetition is one of the main arguments against it being a simple, natural language. Furthermore, the entropy, or complexity, of the language is lower than that of most European languages. The words are constructed from a more limited and repetitive set of syllables. This has led the world's greatest codebreakers to a state of profound frustration. The Bletchley Park cryptographers, who emerged victorious from their battle with the German Enigma machine, were reportedly humbled by this strange little book. The script's repetitive nature makes it resistant to standard frequency analysis, yet its complexity makes it seem unlikely to be a simple substitution cipher. If it is a code, it is one of a sophistication that was centuries ahead of its time, and so we are left with a perfect contradiction. A language that is statistically structured, but unnaturally repetitive. A script that is too complex to be a simple cipher, yet too strange to be a normal language. It is a linguistic ghost, a phantom tongue that perfectly mimics the patterns of human communication, but which imparts no information. Every word, every sentence, every paragraph is a beautifully formed question mark. The text promises a revelation, but its only revelation is the profound and humbling depth of its own silence. A cursed provenance. The emperors and alchemists who held it. A book with no author and no title should have no history. It should be an orphan, a ghost without a past. Yet, the Voynich Manuscript has a provenance as strange and as filled with mystery as its own unreadable pages. It is a story that involves the Holy Roman Emperor, the most famous magician in England, and a series of obsessive alchemists, all of whom held this silent book in their hands, and all of whom were ultimately defeated by it. To trace its path through history is to trace a chain of human obsession. Our story begins in the late 16th century, in the city of Prague, at the glittering, esoteric court of the Holy Roman Emperor, Rudolf II. Rudolf was not a typical ruler. He was a recluse, a man who cared more for the occult, for alchemy, and for the acquisition of strange and powerful objects than for the daily business of his empire. His court was a magnet for mystics, astronomers, and charlatans from all over Europe. According to a letter written decades later, the emperor acquired the manuscript for the immense sum of 600 gold ducats, a fortune at the time. He believed it was a lost work of the 13th century English philosopher and proto-scientist, Roger Bacon, and that it held within its pages the secrets of nature, perhaps even the formula for the philosopher's stone. The rumor, mentioned in the same letter, was that the man who sold it to him was none other than John Dee, the famous English mathematician, astronomer, and court magician to Queen Elizabeth I, who was visiting Prague at the time. From the emperor's collection, the book passed into the hands of his court pharmacist and alchemist, Jacobus Sinapius. We know this because his faint, faded signature is one of the few pieces of legible writing on the first page of the manuscript, a lonely ghost of a known language in a sea of alien script. After Sinapius, the book found its way into the possession of another Prague alchemist, Georg Baresch. Baresch became utterly obsessed with the manuscript. He believed it held the key to a lost science of medicine, and he dedicated years of his life to a fruitless attempt to decipher it. Recognizing his failure, he contacted the most brilliant and famous scholar of the age, the German Jesuit polymath, Athanasius Kircher, who was based in Rome. Kircher was a man who claimed to have deciphered Egyptian hieroglyphs and was renowned for his work on cryptography and lost languages. Baresh sent Kircher copies of some of the script, begging for his help. But Kircher was either unable or unwilling to solve the puzzle. After Baresh's death, the manuscript was inherited by his friend, Johannes Marcus Marci, a physician and scientist. In 1666, Marci, finally admitting his own defeat, sent the book itself on the long journey to Rome and into the hands of Athanasius Kircher. The letter Marci sent with the book is our primary source for its early history, recounting the tales of Rudolph, Roger Bacon, and John Dee. But even Kircher, the greatest mind of his generation, was apparently humbled by the book. There is no record that he ever translated a single word. After his death, the manuscript was likely absorbed into the vast library of the Collegio Romano, a Jesuit university, and there it vanished. For 200 years the book disappeared from history, its strange story forgotten, its silent pages hidden away on a dusty shelf. Its rediscovery came in 1912. The Jesuits of the Collegio Romano, now in need of funds, decided to secretly sell off some of their older, more valuable books. A Polish-American antique book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich was invited to the Villa Mondragone, a Jesuit college near Rome, to inspect the collection. As he sifted through the ancient texts, he found it, a strange, anonymous, and unreadable codex that he immediately recognized as something unique and profound. He purchased the manuscript along with a collection of others and dedicated the rest of his life to solving its mystery and promoting its importance. It was he who gave the book the name by which we know it today. And so, the manuscript's known history is a chain of human obsession. It passed from emperor to alchemist to Jesuit scholar to modern bookseller, and it captivated and frustrated every single one of them. Its provenance is not a simple list of owners. It is a story of the power of a perfect mystery to haunt the human imagination. Theory 1. Is it an unbreakable cipher? When confronted with a text that cannot be read, the logical, rational mind immediately leaps to one primary conclusion: it must be a code. This has been the dominant theory for over a century. The great hope of cryptographers and scholars who believe that the Voynich Manuscript is not a lost language from another world, but a known one, perhaps Latin, Italian, or German that has been deliberately and brilliantly concealed behind an unbreakable cipher. This theory places the manuscript firmly within our own history, making it a product of the 15th century European obsession with secrets, alchemy, and the art of hidden writing. It transforms the book from a work of fantasy into a tantalizing intelligence puzzle, a message waiting for the right mind to unlock it. This belief drew the attention of the greatest codebreakers of the modern age, William and Elizabeth Friedman, the legendary American husband and wife team who helped pioneer modern cryptography and broke countless enemy codes during both world wars, dedicated decades of their lives to the puzzle. They established a study group of fellow cryptographers who, fresh from their victories over the complex military ciphers of the Axis powers, turned their formidable intellects to this strange medieval text. They were certain that, given enough time and analysis, it would yield its secrets. At the end of his life, after nearly 40 years of work, William Friedman had to admit total defeat. He concluded that the manuscript was an early attempt at constructing an artificial, philosophical language, but even he could not prove it. The reason the cipher theory is so frustrating is that the text both invites and rejects cryptographic analysis. Every language has a statistical fingerprint. In English, for example, the letter E is the most common, while Q is almost always followed by a U. Early codebreakers can break simple substitution ciphers where each symbol stands for a single letter by comparing the frequency of symbols in the coded text to the known letter frequencies of the suspected language. But when statisticians analyze the Voynich script, its symbol frequencies match no known European language. The simplest lock was tried, and it did not turn. This has led to theories of far greater complexity. Perhaps it is a polyalphabetic cipher, where a single symbol can represent multiple letters, and a single letter can be represented by multiple symbols, their meaning shifting according to a secret key or pattern. Or perhaps it is a codebook cipher, where each word in the manuscript corresponds to a word or concept in a separate dictionary, a codebook that is now lost forever. If this is the case, then deciphering the manuscript without that key is not just difficult, it is mathematically impossible. And yet, the very nature of the physical writing fights against the idea of a complex code. The smooth, confident, and rapid hand that filled these 240 pages does not seem to be one that is painstakingly encrypting letter by letter, cross-referencing a key or a codebook for every single word. It is the hand of a fluent writer, and this is the paradox that has left codebreakers so deeply and profoundly frustrated. So, the cipher theory leaves us at a frustrating impasse. If the Voynich Manuscript is a code, it is either so brilliantly complex that it has managed to resist the world's greatest analytical minds for over 100 years, or it is of a type that requires a second, accompanying key that has been lost to the ocean of time. Either way, the result is the same: a perfect encryption. The door remains locked, the message unread, forcing us to consider an even stranger and more profound possibility. What if it's not a cipher at all, a lost language, or a perfect hoax? If the key of cryptography cannot turn the lock, then perhaps we are using the wrong key entirely. This profound failure leads us to two alternative theories, each more staggering than the last. The first is romantic and tragic. The second is cynical and brilliant. Both possibilities discard the idea of a code and instead confront the very soul of the book itself, asking not, how is it written, but what is it? The first theory is that the Voynich Manuscript is not a cipher at all. What if we are simply looking at a real, natural language, written by a native speaker, but a language that has been completely lost to time? This would explain the confident, flowing script and the adherence to complex linguistic patterns like Zipf's law. It would explain why cryptographic techniques fail. You cannot decode a language you do not know. This theory transforms the book from a puzzle into a tragedy. It becomes the last, lonely artifact of a forgotten people, a final whisper from a culture that has otherwise vanished from the earth, leaving this single, beautiful book as its only testament. It would mean the impossible plants in its pages were real, that its alien stars once hung in a real sky, and that its strange rituals were once practiced by real people. But this theory, while romantic, is plagued by difficult questions. If this culture was sophisticated enough to produce a work of such detail and artistry, where is their other archaeology? Where are their ruins, their tools, their graves? Where are the other traces of their lost language? And how do we account for the bizarre and unnatural repetition of words, a feature not commonly found in other natural languages? This leads us to the second, and perhaps most unsettling, possibility. If the text is not a known language in code, and not a lost language from history, what is left? Only the most cynical and, in some ways, most brilliant possibility of all, that the Voynich Manuscript is a complete and utter fraud. This theory proposes that the book is a meaningless string of characters, brilliantly designed to look like a real text, in order to fool a wealthy and gullible patron. It is, in this view, the most successful and elaborate intellectual hoax in the history of literature. The historical context certainly provides a motive. The 15th and 16th centuries were a fertile ground for such deceptions, with a booming market among the rich and powerful for ancient texts, alchemical secrets, and mystical objects. A beautiful, old-looking book filled with strange plants and an unreadable secret language would have been the perfect bait for an occult-obsessed collector like Emperor Rudolph II. The bizarre illustrations and the impenetrable text were not a window into a lost world. They were an elaborate stage dressing, designed to create an aura of profound, ancient mystery, and thereby inflate the object's price. But to accept the hoax theory is to posit a creator of almost superhuman genius and patience. It would require a forger who, centuries before the advent of modern linguistics and statistical analysis, was able to create a fake language that so closely mimics the structural patterns of a real one. It would require a con artist, who was also a brilliant and prolific artist, filling hundreds of vellum pages with intricate, and internally consistent drawings from the depths of his imagination. Why would someone go to such extraordinary, laborious lengths? The sheer scale of the effort involved in creating such a detailed and plausible, yet ultimately meaningless, artifact is in itself a baffling puzzle. And so we are caught on the horns of a dilemma. Is the book the last, lonely artifact of a forgotten people, a tragic survivor whose language died with them? Or is it the most successful and elaborate intellectual prank ever perpetrated, a beautiful, meaningless object designed purely to deceive? Both possibilities are staggering in their own right. One speaks to a lost history, the other to a singular, cynical genius. Both leave the book's central chamber empty of meaning, its pages still stubbornly, perfectly silent. The modern assault. Can AI unlock the secrets? After a century of failure, with the greatest human codebreakers and linguists of the modern age defeated by the manuscript's stubborn silence, a new kind of mind was brought to bear on the problem. In the 21st century, the assault on the Voynich Manuscript became a technological one. Frustrated by the limits of human intuition and analysis, researchers turned from the carbon-based brain to the silicon brain, asking a new and vital question: can artificial intelligence, our most powerful tool for pattern recognition, finally succeed where generations of humans have failed? The logic was compelling. An AI, specifically a machine learning model, can be trained on the entire corpus of known human languages. It can process millions of pages of text, from ancient Latin to obscure Asian dialects, learning the deep, underlying statistical structures, the syntax, and the rhythms that define how humans communicate. The hope was that this powerful, alien mind, free from human cognitive biases, could analyze the Voynich script and find a hidden correlation, a faint echo of a known language family that human experts had missed. Perhaps it could identify the text as a heavily distorted version of a real language, or at least definitively map out its grammatical structure. Periodically, headlines will flare across the internet, announcing a breakthrough. A team of researchers in Canada claims their AI has determined the language is an anagrammed form of ancient Hebrew. Another team suggests it's a lost proto-Romance language, a kind of vulgar Latin mixed with other tongues. For a moment, the world holds its breath, believing the lock has finally been turned. These AI-driven studies have produced tantalizing clues. They have identified what appear to be core words for concepts like plant, sky, and water based on their proximity to the corresponding illustrations. But these glimmers of hope always seem to fade under the harsh light of academic scrutiny. The problem is one of confirmation. An AI is a pattern-matching machine of immense power. If you ask it to find similarities between Voynichese and Hebrew, it will find them. But it can also find tenuous, coincidental patterns between Voynichese and almost any other language, if programmed to do so. Without a bilingual texter, Voynich Rosetta Stonetto verify even a single word's translation, these findings remain compelling but unproven speculation. They are mathematical ghosts, patterns in the noise that may or may not be real. No AI-generated theory has yet led to a single, repeatable and verifiable translation of a full sentence. What AI has done, however, is deepen the mystery in a new and profound way. It has confirmed, with a new level of statistical certainty, that the text is not random gibberish. It is a highly structured, rule-based system with a low entropy that is consistent from the first page to the last. This makes the hoax theory even more difficult to believe, as it would require a forger of almost inhuman discipline to maintain such complex statistical consistency over 240 pages. And so, the modern assault on the Voynich manuscript has, so far, ended in the same place as the old one, in humble failure. We have thrown our most advanced computational minds at this 600-year-old book, and the book's silence has proven more powerful. The machine, like the human scholars before it, can describe the intricate shape of the lock with breathtaking precision, but it still cannot provide us with the key. The mystery endures, not just as a historical puzzle, but as a quiet, ongoing testament to the limits of our own technological genius. The final explanation. Why the mystery endures. And so, we arrive at the end of our journey, at the final, promised, explanation. After exploring the strange artifact, its impossible contents, its cursed history, and the century of failed attempts to unlock it, what is the answer? What is the secret of the world's most mysterious book? The final explanation for the Voynich Manuscript is perhaps the most profound and unsettling of all. Its true secret is that it has perfectly, brilliantly, and perhaps deliberately resisted every attempt to know it. Its meaning is found in its magnificent, unyielding silence. Every logical path we have followed has led to a dead end. The key of cryptography fails because the text is both too structured and too strange. It mimics a real language too well to be a simple cipher, but its bizarre, repetitive features make it unlike any known complex code. The key of linguistics fails because the language has no known family, no ancestors, no descendants. If it is a real language, it is a complete orphan in the history of the world. The key of technology fails because artificial intelligence, for all its power, is a pattern-matching machine that has no ground truth, no Rosetta Stone, to verify its findings. Every door we try to open is a false one, leading only to another locked room in a labyrinth of our own making. The manuscript survives as a mystery because it exists in a perfect, liminal state, a ghost that lives precisely in the space between all of our established categories. It is too complex, too laborious, and too statistically consistent to be a simple hoax. Yet its contents are too strange to be a genuine record of our world. It is too orderly and elegant to be the ravings of a madman, yet too chaotic and illogical to be the product of a familiar science. It sits in the exact center of a web of contradictions, and this is the source of its power. It is a perfect enigma. Ultimately, the Voynich Manuscript has become a mirror. For centuries, it has reflected the deepest desires and biases of those who have studied it. The devout alchemist, searching for the secrets of transmutation, saw a book of hidden chemical knowledge. The military codebreaker, believing every puzzle has a solution, saw an unbreakable cipher. The modern historian, searching for lost worlds, sees the last testament of a forgotten people. The skeptic sees the ultimate con. The book offers just enough tantalizing evidence to support any of these theories, but never, ever enough to prove one. It is a beautiful, ornate screen onto which we project our own obsessions. The explanation we were promised, then, is this. The Voynich Manuscript's meaning is found not in its unreadable pages, but in its ability to generate infinite questions. Its purpose, whatever it was to its creator, has been lost. Its legacy, however, is to serve as a permanent and humbling reminder that the universe is not obligated to be understandable to us. It is a testament to the fact that history is full of voids, that knowledge can be lost so completely that it leaves not even a shadow behind. It teaches us that not all doors are meant to be opened, and that sometimes the most beautiful thing a story can do is to leave us, forever, in a state of perfect and unending wonder. Conclusion. The silent oracle. And so, our journey ends where it began, in the quiet, climate-controlled halls of a library, standing in our mind's eye before a small, unassuming, and utterly silent book. We have looked at it from every conceivable angle. We have examined its physical form, analyzed its impossible illustrations, traced its cursed history through the hands of emperors and alchemists, and followed the century-long assault on its unreadable text. After all this, the book remains what it has always been, a perfect enigma, a quiet and profound victor over every human mind and machine that has attempted to conquer it. We came seeking a final explanation, but the manuscript has taught us that not all stories have a final chapter. We walked the path of the historian, tracing its provenance from the occult-obsessed court of Rudolph II to the modern day, only to find that its history is a chain of obsession, a story of men who owned it but never possessed its secret. We walked the path of the cryptographer, armed with the tools of statistical analysis and the wisdom of the world's greatest codebreakers, only to find that the text is a paradox too structured to be simple, too strange to be complex. We followed the path of the linguist, searching for echoes of a lost language, only to find a phantom tongue that follows its own bizarre rules of repetition, a language with no known relatives and no home. Finally, we unleashed the full power of modern technology, of artificial intelligence and computational analysis, only to have our most advanced creations tell us what we already knew, that the mystery is profound, the structure is deliberate, and the meaning is completely, utterly, beyond our reach. The true genius of the Voynich Manuscript, then, may not be what it hides, but what it reflects. For centuries, it has served as a perfect mirror, showing us not its own secrets, but our own desires. The alchemist, seeking the key to eternal life, saw in its pages a book of lost chemical formulae. The devout mystic, seeking a connection to the divine, saw in it a holy text, perhaps a language of the angels. The military codebreaker, for whom every puzzle must have a solution, saw the ultimate, unbreakable cipher. And the modern historian, longing for lost worlds, sees in it the last, tragic testament of a forgotten civilization. The manuscript provides just enough evidence to feed every one of these theories, but never enough to confirm a single one. It is a beautiful, ornate screen onto which we have projected our own greatest hopes and intellectual vanities for 600 years. The final explanation, then, is a lesson in humility. The Voynich Manuscript endures because it is a perfect question. Its value lies not in a message that we might one day translate, but in its powerful, permanent, and unyielding silence. It is a testament to the fact that the universe is not obligated to be understandable to us, that history is not a complete map, but a territory filled with vast, uncharted spaces, and that knowledge itself can be lost so completely that it leaves not even a shadow behind. It is more than a book. It is a philosophical object, a work of art whose central subject is the very limit of human understanding. It is a beautiful, complex, and undeniable message from a forgotten world. And its only clear message is this: you do not know me, and you never will. But while the Voynich Manuscript may be a puzzle with no solution, history has also left us with ciphers that we know are real, codes that guard a tangible secret. And one of them has been partially broken, leaving behind a tantalizing map to a lost American treasure. To explore the mystery of the Beale ciphers, a set of encrypted texts that have obsessed treasure hunters for over a century, and that promise a fortune in gold and silver to anyone who can break their final code, click the video that's on the screen right now.